Yeah.
And she told me as I'm getting my makeup done, I'm like, oh my gosh, I still haven't written the speech yet. And she said, well, you have achieved everything in your life. You're now just telling the story. And it was like 5 tons of bricks just came
Oh,
off of
wow.
me. It was like I started like almost crying, but I was getting my makeup done. So it was like a whole moment.
Mm.
And it just naturally kind of flowed after that. And I just got like this Jack and the Beanstalk inspiration in my mind. And it's, yeah, it just kind of
That
flowed.
metaphor, the fact that you were able to somehow build out this metaphor, and you had the slides, which is also interesting. Did you make them on your phone?
Yes, I got the slides together. I had did that all day while I was getting my makeup and my hair done. But I still didn't know what I was going to say.
Nice.
Yeah.
That
And then it
is,
was like, okay, this is how I'm going to connect. And the whole thing just like came together in an instance. And it was like, this is what I was supposed to talk about. And
absolutely.
I do feel like it was a brilliant speech, if I may say so myself.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, Angel, it was truly like the wisdom was there, the guidance through the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. I don't think you ever really lost anyone. I think people were, even though it's a story that's known, the way you reframed it, it was a very effective like learning tool and storytelling tool, right? To kind
Thank
of
you.
make the comparisons between you and like and what was happening. Not you, but your journey.
Hmm.
And actually, that's actually a really important thing. It never felt, I'm just putting on Facebook as well. I'm like, oh, let's do it. Uh, it never felt it was a story of ego. It never felt like you egotistically were the one who found the golden eggs or anything like this. You know what I mean? It all felt like more of a template of how to approach things. And you happen to have followed, you've kind of figured it out, but it was an invitation to see things in that way. That to me is so, it's a very fine line between a bit of ego self aggrandizing and just being able to say, hey, I have figured out this kind of template. Maybe that works for you. That was very smart. That's why I wanted to talk to you.
Wow, that like my heart is bursting because that is exactly what I prayed on for months. That's exactly why I didn't rush the speech. That's exactly why it was so refreshing when the makeup artist said that to me, because I in no way wanted it to come across as braggadocious.
No,
I want people to feel like, hey, I think I figured out something here and allow me to share it with you.
yeah,
Allow me to show you how to walk through this maze, because if you're just looking at it from the front perspective and you haven't actually walked through the maze, you have no idea how to get through it. And people might look at it like, oh my gosh, this impossible maze. And it's not for me to say, look at me, I made it through the maze.
no,
It's not that at all. It's, hey, I'm trying to put the breadcrumbs. I need y'all to join together with
oh,
me so we can put the breadcrumbs so everybody else can stop struggling to get through the maze.
100%. I gravitated to that so much just because, honestly, Angel, like I'm at this really interesting turning point in my own life and trying to make a really important, some important decisions about the next steps, with my husband. Like I'm also just recently engaged, and just what this next stage of life should and could look like, and realizing how I've the gifts, or we all have those superpowers, right? And how my gifts of, having a lot of emotional intelligence, using that to drive more equity and inclusion. Like I approach equity and inclusion from a compassion perspective, like getting people who are the most afraid of DEI to say that, look, this is a mindset shift and this is about being more compassionate and considerate. That's the primary thing. I'm also a painter. And it's been so easy for me to be in that mission impact world. Sometimes it was to my own detriment, because then I didn't always prioritize how to think more business like. And I was like, oh my God, I think talking to Angel is going to be really important, not just for my own thing, but I just feel that you are so mission driven, but you've had that element. God has guided you so much in that way. And I surrender, and I totally am welcome to receive that right now, because I see that I want to improve in certain ways. And so, yeah, I just felt that getting to know you more as a person And I love that you say, I trust in God, and like you surrender to God. Knowing that that's so a part of you, I feel is helpful to see, because like I think faith is, and surrendering to your divine purpose, maybe that's what needs to happen right now for all of us, for myself and for you and all of that.
I have so many responses. I struggled with that a lot before. And funnily, when I was at a crossroads period, similar to where your mind space is now, it was a time in my life where I was doing a lot of touring with Ray Lewis, with something called, it was originally Ferguson 1000 and then Global 1000. And we were going around helping entrepreneurs and things of that nature. And Ray Lewis used to give these really passionate speeches, and he really figured out a lot of things. The football
Yes.
player, and I asked him the exact question dilemma that you're dealing with,
Did
and
you?
his response sort of freed me, and I'm going to give it to you. And he said, "You do your best to help as many people as you can, but not to your own detriment." And it triggered
Okay.
that thought because you literally used the word to your own detriment. And I was
That's
doing things to my own detriment. And I was suffering. I was helping the world, but you can't pour from an empty cup. So I now, fortunate, it's so funny how things work out, because now that I changed my perspective and I do make sure that my cup is a little bit more full first, so that I am pouring for a full cup, I've been able to do so much more than I was doing before that period. So now I even make myself rest a little bit. I try to make myself
no
even go
way.
to bed at 11 or 12. And people that know me know they're used to getting emails from me from 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Um, that still happens sometimes, but not nearly as frequently as it used to, because I've learned I'm a lot more impactful if I'm actually taking care of myself. I'm able to put a
Exactly.
lot more into it. So I think that it's important to take a step back and make sure that you have a game plan for yourself, so that you have a foundation to rely on, so that you can continue to be able to help others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Sorry, I'm looking at this because I'm trying to find the live thing, but that is the definite turning point. And it's also helpful to hear that, you've also had that moment where you needed to ask. And actually, that was one of the questions I had, was like, I know it's kind of jumping non-linear, but um just wondering, if was there ever a moment where you almost were not necessarily so low, but you just had to call out to God and you needed to
All the
ask
time. I had
for
one yesterday.
guidance? Yeah. Like
All
that
the
moment where you're
time.
just like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. I'm getting all these messages. What do I do? God, please show me, tell
I
me.
think you have to have an anchor, and I have several anchors.
Okay,
It depends on how extreme the situation is.
that's true. Okay.
my my first anchor is to just I actually tell you like a little bit in sequence. I'll go through it. My first anchor is to just sit in front of the fireplace,
Okay.
because fire is nature, right? And it's consistently burning. And when Moses was thinking, he went to the burning bush. So it might sound a little bit weird, but I just sit in front of the
I
fireplace and
love
I'm just Moses in front of the burning bush with God. Okay. So that's step one. Okay. If the problem doesn't get solved after that, I've then learned to ask my husband for a hug or a massage. He has now learned how important this is to me, because just the soothing of touch allows me to think and just clear my mind and to just settle into reality instead of being it just
yes.
allows me to just be grounded. He even hires masseuse for me. It's one coming tomorrow. Okay. Okay.
That's beautiful. Oh
Yes.
my gosh, I love it.
So then after that, I really dived into, if I'm dealing with something like extreme, like to the point that I'm like in tears and I'm just completely like heartbroken, I usually go to my Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Then if it's a level 5,
Okay, so see, there's increments, there's levels to it. I see. So level 5.
yes, if we're at a level 5, then I'm breaking out the Mary Mary, take the shackles off my feet. He didn't bring me this far to leave me. And then it's a full-on praise session going down in my kitchen.
Wow.
Like the neighbors will be able to feel God coming from my house. Okay. My
Oh,
husband has to leave the room because it just gets way too intense. Okay. Like you would think I was preaching to a congregation of like 10,000, like, but it's just me,
Angel, I
myself, and
love this.
God. And we're
Yes.
going off. Okay.
Wow.
um, then there's one more level after that. And that is me flying into water. I will get on a plane and I will either fly to Miami, LA, or Jamaica. And I will sit and I will be one with the earth, with the land. I will almost do a not a rebaptism, but almost a giving of myself again in the water. And I go deep. Um, that is usually the by the time I do that, I've solved my problem. And I do not leave the water until it's solved.
Wow. That's very special. I hear the surrendering, the calling in and being vulnerable to God, the universe, asking for what you need with your husband.
And you have to be
Um,
serious.
but the but I love the connection to nature because at the beginning and at the end, there's both nature, the element, right? The element of fire, the strength of that, and then just being completely like on, in the earth, by the water, on the land. I love that. That's yeah, it's amazing. I feel like that's very helpful. And I guess usually it's your intuition becomes clearer after that. Do you find that's what happens?
Yes, it's almost like sometimes I almost call it like a de-shelling. It's a surrendering myself to God because it's what am I missing? Am I being too trusting of somebody? Is my ego in the way? Is greed in the way? Is there some type of sin that is in the way?
Hmm.
Is it me that has sinned or needs to relieve myself of some type of ungodly thought? Or is it the other person or other situation that has sinned against me? And do I need to now forgive them of that and move on? So I first make sure that it's not myself. And if it is myself, I fix the situation or forgive myself. And then if I go through the painstaking exercise of not being able to find anything wrong that I did, I then have to conclude that it's the other party. And I then go through an exercise of fixing slash forgiving slash determining what I'm now going to do about it.
Wow. I really appreciate you sharing that process. I feel like that's something that I if the TED Talk was any indication of like how you usually speak to people, this is another side that maybe doesn't always get spoken about. Because I guess it's not as like, the practical steps to do something, it is another layer. But this process, like your own success and journey is holistic. It's not just like the Jack and Beanstalk part, yes. And I think you infused a little bit of that, but there is also this.
Yeah, everything I do is for God. So it would be irrelevant for me to make a decision on my own or to do something that was out of line with God. It would be no point to doing it. So I've become more and more aligned with that over the years.
So helpful. Maybe you can even introduce yourself a little bit, just more in terms of like your upbringing, what you love to do now, family, education, a little bit about that to give some context.
It's funny that you say that because I just started writing my book about my life 2 hours ago.
What? Yes.
I'm gonna hop back into it when I get off of this. My husband just really, really inspired. I've been had deals and all type of stuff on the table, but I just never actually started writing it. So yeah, I'm excited. So it's funny. So this is kind of front of mind. And I'll share a little bit. The
Mhm.
book is going to come from the perspective of these three different fathers that I had. So I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm fourth generation Capitol Hill. My family are founding residents of Capitol Hill. And interestingly, at the same time, I didn't really have a dad, but I've had three fathers.
Wow.
And one was my grandfather who actually raised me. He's the poor man in the story, the most consistent figure in my life, the person that was with me from the moment I was born until he died, the person that I consider most to be my father. And then there is the person now that is mainly my father, who I have kind of started to call dad. He was a businessman and was very, very smart, very intelligent, and was able to make a lot of smart business decisions that I was able to learn from. A lot of my business knowledge comes from him.
Mm.
And then my third biological father is a little bit of a hustler. And he was in and out of jail my whole life, didn't really get to see him too much. And to this day, we're a little bit contentious. And I think it is the viewpoint of these three different men in my life, as well as my mother, who is very much an inventor, extremely intelligent. She's the backbone of the entire, situation, as well as my mother is who taught me about wealth. My mother's company
Mm.
was called Wealth Legacy. She never was focused on getting rich. It was always about wealth and helping people to manage their wealth. So I more and more as I just started to write this book and realizing I was raised in a almost a business simulation under
Yeah,
the guise of my childhood.
that's amazing. Yes.
And then my grandparents and my great grandparents are deep in religion, with my Moses side of the family coming from South Carolina, as sort of being some of the pillars of the Baptist Convention, and to this day. So we're also very deeply, deeply religious. My like half of my family is like ministers.
Wow.
So like the combination of it all really speaks to why I'm so tied in with business and God. It's almost like my life was written for me before I even got started.
Wow, that's so powerful. It's amazing to just see, yeah, the way it's been so embedded in every part, every corner of your reality, growing up. I think that sets such an amazing tone. Um, so that kind of answers the question. Would you say it answers the question about, were you pretty clear and decisive about the work you ended up following, or was it a bit of a meandering experimentation road, or was it very clear the overall purpose and direction? You were pretty set and relentless.
Yeah, more and more I realize how fortunate God allowed my life to be, because He gave me a vision about my life when I was 6 years old. And everything that I've done has been a result of that vision. I have followed it to the T. I have been amazed myself how much of that vision has come to pass. And God continues to provide me with different visions and things of that nature. That's also what I'm waiting on when I go to the water, like what the next step or different things
Oh,
like that might be. So it is, my life has never really been my own. It's always been what God's vision for it would be, again, if it was, I actually, it's funny, I just learned about individual will like yesterday. Me and my husband
really?
have been, yes, like I'm being very serious. Me and my
Wow.
husband have been going over chakras,
Yes.
and apparently one of the chakras is divine will, and there is another chakra that is individual will.
Mm.
And I've been following God so much, I didn't even realize there was an individual will chakra.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful.
So now I've been kind of like, hey, what do I want to do with my individual will?
Oh my, it's almost just so beautiful to see that it's so, it's not even like selfless in a martyr way. It's just so connected. I don't know how to describe it. Like, you've been living so connected that how could you think living just for yourself, you know?
I think I grew up in a cult. Shout out to Southern Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. I think they raised us so well that I thought the whole world was like this. I
Wow.
thought the whole world, like,
So what do you see with
what?
the individual will? Like now, are you exploring other worldviews as well, just for learning?
No, no, no. I definitely stick. I'm sticking with Jesus. I'm sticking with Jesus. No, no. I'm sticking with my Lord. No, it's not that. It's that I'll give you an example. Let me try to think of an example. Like, say for instance, it's a concert happening. And say for instance, I really want to go see this concert. And then say somebody else tells me that an orphanage wants me to come speak at the exact same time.
This is good.
And they really need me to be able to raise this money and this, that, and they're not gonna pay me. Okay. um, I will probably go choose the orphanage. Um, and because I'm following God's will, not my will. Of course, Angel wants to go party with Mary J. Blige, but God needs Angel to go help the orphanage. So that's how I make my daily decisions. Being married has been interesting because I now have to consider my husband. And it's now been like, okay, God first, then my husband, then me. It's been interesting figuring all of that out. So learning about individual will, and he grew up in church as well. So we've just been like balancing out each other's perspectives and like, like how much is supposed to be mission driven versus how much is us being able to live a little bit.
Yes, exactly. Do you figure that out on a, like, not day to day, but just as you move along, or is it pretty clear what you guys do? You actually make a structure?
I think more and more it's pretty clear why God has put us together, and the things that we like to do that make us live are things that are also aligned with God. Like, he's really passionate about financial education as well. So we're starting a podcast. It's called Credit Rich Charcuterie. He's going to join in, and we'll get to actually educate and talk about financial education together. So I think it's a matter of finding mediums and pathways for us to still be able to accomplish our mission, but allow us to be able to come together and have fun and have some type of outlets at the same time.
I love that. So I want to ask, I think we've gone over a bunch of the questions, which is so beautiful, but I wanted to know from your perspective what the role of the arts has been in your life. Like, what kind of discussions have you had, or, some involvement with artists, or even their impact? And that could be...
Well, I have an Andy Warhol right here.
Okay, amazing. The print there, yes, I love it.
Yes, this right here is one of I Love Lucy's original checks. It's a collector's item. If I were to turn my screen, I don't want to mess up your view though.
That's okay.
If I were to turn my screen, I have my awards and a little bit of art right there with the bull. But all throughout my house, I have different art pieces. I went to Hampton University, HU. So our pride and joy is our art museum. It rivals the Smithsonian.
Wow.
So yeah, for real, in real life, they try to buy our pieces all the time. So you cannot go to Hampton and not appreciate art. Yeah. So I'm very much big into art.
Have you ever seen it like come up in spaces with unlikely kind of audiences talking about it, like even in the financial world at all, or has it ever really come up? Or
you're gonna take me back to my roots, honey, and get a rare story out of me.
I love it.
So how I even came up with the idea for this company was because of
Credit Rich.
For Wealthy Life, period. When I started my company 10 years ago, to even focus on figuring out how to digitize financial education. The reason I even thought of it was because I went on a job interview and I was at Prudential Financial, and what soon became my boss had a piece of art on the wall, and it was Van Gogh, The Scream. And so his son had drew it. And I walked in and I just casually said, "Oh, I love your Van Gogh painting." And he looked at me like, half this office comes in here. Majority of the people have never been able to identify that painting. Like, how were you so easily able to do that? And I was like, "Oh, I love art. Every Hampton student knows their art." he then like went into his closet and whipped out like 3 other paintings and asked me to identify them. I knew them all.
Oh my
And
God.
one of them, I knew 2 out of 3 of the titles. The third one, I didn't know the title, but I said, but I'm willing to bet who the artist is. And so he was so impressed. That's one of the ways I ended up getting my job at Prudential. And then it was just a casual sort of interview after that. And we
Oh,
discussed art. And after that, I was like, that needs to be a game. It needs to be a simulated experience where you actually learn art, because there will become a time in your life that you might walk into a business meeting and it boils down to whether or not you can name the art on the wall. And I said, and not just other things, you need to be able to negotiate. You need to be able to have financial literacy. You need to be able to have training. And I came up with this sort of entire plan of being able to walk people from birth to retirement with all these various different skills, so that when they walked into that interview, they would be able to handle themselves, have the skills,
love
get
it.
the job, and name the art on the wall.
The differentiator. Art is the differentiator for
It
you.
is.
Oh
It
my
is.
God, that's so amazing. What were some of the reasons why he chose the pieces? Do you remember? Why did he chose those specific pieces?
He was a big fan of Van Gogh as well.
He just liked, yeah, just being a fan and all of that. Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. Oh my God, that's so special. I
It's
love that.
so wild, you know?
I love that so much. I think that's amazing. Well, what do you think? And as we're kind of coming to the close, I mean, what do you want people to take away from your own legacy and your own work? I mean, you're in the business of helping people. So what's your hope for, what they
Well, I
really
definitely have to tell people to look out for Credit Rich in partnership with Experian and Visa. We round up users' spare change to pay your bills intelligently and optimize your credit score, as well as you can look out for, or you can go get my book, History of the Black Dollar. We're going to be doing a new version later this year. We're really excited. There's a lot that's
Oh,
happened over
cool.
the past 5 years. So we're really excited for that updated version. And we have courses as well, financial literacy courses, as well as Black history courses. We have over 50 interactive courses. What I want people to take away from me personally is that impossible is not impossible. That's about to be my new quote. Impossible is not impossible.
Yeah.
And I think it's a matter of you putting your mindset to it. I think that you have to have the grit and the guts to tell yourself that this is not impossible, no matter what the world has already told you. And I mean the world. I mean,
Wow.
I don't care if the United Nations gather together and tell you it's impossible. If God has put it in your heart and in your thoughts and in your dreams, then it
Mm,
is. And one of my big inspirations as a kid was Joan of Arc. And
okay.
so she told herself that the impossible was not impossible, a 700-year war. So I think that you have to just have the faith within yourself as well as in God. And Whitney Houston said it takes a lot of confidence in yourself and as well as God to have that level of faith.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Angel, thank you so much for that. That is just so valuable. I feel like for everyone and also for me, definitely. Like I so appreciate that. And just you sharing more of that side of you, what gets you through the day when you need that guidance and just surrendering to God and mm, trusting your intuition, trusting that God has given you a reason and it's your responsibility to fulfill that and own that. So I think that's so special.
Yeah, just to layer it on a little bit more, like I said, I was recently dealing with something, and to the point I even talked to my mother about it. And my faith is so strong in my family that my mother pretty much cursed me out for my lack of faith in that moment. She said, the problem is you're trying to do it by yourself. You need to let go and let God. Why are you trying to handle something that God is already in the middle of handling? That's how serious my family is about faith.
Wow. So I think, and if anyone, even if people aren't connected to from their family, that is still so wise for us to take on. So I feel
Yeah,
like amazing. And I'm so
and she was right. I let it go. I had to let it go after that. I had to let it go and step back and watch what God did. And boy, when this announcement hit,
wow, it's so special. Okay, well, I think that's something that we can all sort of surrender to and trust. I appreciate it so much, Angel. Thank you. Thank
thank
you
you for
so
having
much.
me.
Of course, we'll be in touch, okay, through email.
All righty. Have a
That's
good one.
wonderful. Thank you, you too. Bye.